Debi Gros, founder and director of the Crisis Center for Religious Women, Tahel, Crisis Center for Religious Women and Children. We started the idea for a conference a year ago when we saw that the idea of sexual abuse and domestic violence was being talked about within our communities. We started 25 years ago. Nobody talked about this. Today, as a result of our work, it's there. People are talking about it. But what we saw happening is that people were reinventing the wheel. Communities all over the world were suddenly trying to think what they can do. And chaval, we've learned things. Things we did in the past may not be appropriate today. So we made a conference a year ago. 650 people came from all over the world. And the idea of the conference was to bring people together and to learn from one another. There was a buzz. There was an excitement in the air. And this conference is step 2. Step 2 is training. Step 2 is teaching people what to do. We have the first track for the regular concerned parent. How to make your community safe, how to talk to your children about this, how to make sure your school is a safe environment. Track 2 is probably the most important track. The State of Israel has a law preventing sexual harassment, where every school, every synagogue, every workplace has to have a monitor in charge of this. And yet they don't. 98% of the schools do not have a monitor. What we're saying is go home today. Tell your school a teacher has to be sent. Send a teacher for 2 days, and she will be trained how to build a safe school, how to ensure that your school is safe, how to talk to the teachers on the topic, and most important, how to intervene when something happens. We have a maslul, a track for rabbis. Today we've seen in Israel so many cases of abuse by rabbinical figures. We see cases today with rabbis who were accused of abuse are now being invited again to be rabbis. Rabbis who were convicted, not accused. What we're saying is rabbis have to come and learn what is domestic violence, what is sexual abuse, how do I deal with it as a rabbi, and how do I put boundaries that will make the victim feel safe and keep me safe in my job as a rabbi. We have another track for lawyers and toanot where they can learn how to deal with these cases, and then we have 2 tracks for mental health professionals. We brought in specialists from out of the country. One of the exciting things about this conference is people are coming from all over the world, and we're learning from each other. We have simultaneous translation for a lot of it, and we have some in Hebrew and some in English. And the idea is people can't travel all over the world the way I do and meet these people, so we're bringing the people in so you can learn from them. What we're finding is that when rabbis and religious schools and religious communities are trained, they don't keep it quiet. When they learn that a pedophile doesn't molest one child, a pedophile can molest hundreds of children, when they learn the laws and they learn how to intervene, then we're seeing a change. We have many, many rabbis who are inviting us into their schools and saying, build a protocol for our school, build a takanon. They're letting us give lectures in the cheters, in the Talmud Torah, and the Beis Yaakov. And these are important things. I think in the past people didn't know what to do. And today they know they have to do something, but they still don't know what to do. What we're saying is you have to make your rabbi come for training. You have to make your school get training. So I'm taking the responsibility off my shoulders, Debi Gros, and saying it's now your responsibility. I get calls where people say, we heard there's a pedophile who lived in our neighborhood, someone who was convicted 30 years ago. And what I say is you're concerned about someone who did something 30 years ago, but there might be a pedophile in your school or in your neighborhood. Build a safe school, build a safe neighborhood. Force your communities to deal with these issues. I don't believe that women who come forward and tell the stories of their abuse are doing it out of revenge. It takes many, many years for women to process what they went through. Often they won't even tell their best friends. If it happened to a child, often she will keep that secret inside of her and not tell anyone. It takes a long process until they can tell someone. And sometimes they tell someone and they're told, be quiet, you don't want to make waves, you don't want to get your family in trouble. So they'll stay quiet for even longer. But then something happens, that person becomes a big figure, whether he becomes a Knesset member, whether he becomes a big rabbi, and they just can't stay quiet any longer. So it's not that they're out for revenge, it's that suddenly they say, this person hurt me, hurt other people. I can't let him go on and be a leader in our country. So it's not revenge. It's about not being able to be quiet anymore. The theme of our conference is a quote by Rav Kook where he says, I don't speak because I have the power to speak. I speak because I no longer have the power to be silent. And that's what we're saying. These victims suddenly just can't be silent anymore. Today, a rabbi has become more than just a halachic advisor. He's been someone that people turn to for all parts of their life. There's someone that they can trust, and he's there to listen. And therefore, often they will bring their stories. They will bring stories of past abuse, or stories of present abuse. And the rabbi has to know, A, how to handle these stories, how to deal with the victims. He has to know what does the law require, but most important, he has to know how to refer them to professionals who can take care of them. And this is what we're training the rabbis to do. The question is, are we letting rabbis take too much on, and is that not their place? So everybody has to decide what they want from a rabbi. But what we have to do is teach rabbis what is right for them to do and what isn't. A rabbi is not a therapist. A rabbi is not a lawyer. A rabbi is not a law enforcement. And he has to know what are those boundaries. He has to know how much should a woman be telling me. If a woman goes into detail with a rabbi of her sexual abuse, she will later maybe feel that she went through a form of abuse. A rabbi has to know just to hear what he has to hear and not more. Often we tell him he should have the story be given to his wife, maybe, and we're training. In a week's time, we have a kenes for Rabbaniyot, a training for Rabbaniyot, because we feel not all these stories have to come to the rabbi. But yes, the rabbi has to know boundaries. Boundaries make the victim feel safe, and boundaries keep our community safe, and boundaries keep the rabbis safe.